and welcome to the BEC Tech Talk number 2, presented to you by BEC Tech Academy. My name is Kamil Kościesza. I'm the Mainframe Competence Manager at BEC Poland. Shortly about the company, we are providing financial services to almost a quarter of Danes, so around 3 million people. We service 30 banks in Denmark, and what we do all of our stuff on Mainframes. Mainframes is technology that has almost 70 years. It's over 60 years right now. Started in '59. That is powering today's business in many cases. So probably you are using Mainframe behind the scenes 10, 20 times a day, but you don't know it. Depending on the country. Belgium is a country with a little bit less payments. It's more cash. It was more cash when I was there. Poland is a country that was very much developed into current financial institutions. So we do payless contacts on payments. We do payments via mobile number, Apple Pay, Google Pay, whatsoever. It's overall introduced everywhere. So that's only payments. Then you take a train, you take a bus, you take a plane, you buy something, you have insurance, you insure your car, you check on any government page, whatever the country, anything like that, where there you have plenty of massive data, and especially the number of transactions where it's huge, you are going to use a Mainframe behind the scenes. Maybe it's a rumor, maybe it's not. I think Uber is using Mainframes behind the scenes for traffic management. Not Cobol itself, but Mainframe for being able to cover all the load that is coming in from the users. Yeah, so I said it at the beginning. I'm 33 years old, so I'm 2 times younger than the technology I'm working on every day. Fun fact, that's why I put it here. So anything like that. Going forward, the agenda. I will show you how the financial market has evolved over times. I'm going to show you what are Mainframes. I'm going to show you Cobol shortly on the presentation, and in a longer version on a demo, just to show you how quickly can you develop something. Because you would say yourself, okay, it's old language, old technology, no IDE whatsoever. That's not the case. Then a little discussion about the issue with that language, actually what is causing the so bad perception of it, and the demo. And after the demo, I have some questions. For anybody that is online with us, I will answer your questions afterwards by answering to them on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever. To guys here in the room, I will answer normally because it's going to be easier for us. So, financial sector evolution. Most probably, you know or you don't know, banks have started as physical banks, places where you could put your money. But it was not connected to anything. You had one bank, the other bank was at the other end of the country, other end of the city. You were doing transfers of money. You were taking, well, not you, the banker was taking the cash, going to see another dude that was a banker as well. They that exchanged that money, and they kept books on paper. But the evolution, sorry, one too far. The evolution was introducing of connected systems. Just not to mess around too much with the presentation, this one is the one of the newest version. I will show you the beginnings after that. So you have a centralized system. This means that you can do transfers of money without seeing somebody directly. And you can evolve the way how you work with having not only bank as big buildings, you can have also smaller places, agents. That was the evolution, because right now most of the banks in every country are closing down the number of branches that they have, simply because it's not needed anymore, but it will be shown here as well. Something that probably maybe only your professors could have seen. This is the knuckle buster. This is the tool that was used to actually make your credit card payment. Fun fact, you can use it still in the USA because they are still using that. In Europe, it's not to be seen anymore. I have seen that one because my mother was working as a cashier at a car dealership, so I could see that thing when I was 7 years old, and that was the last time. Next thing, I said branches with easier access to the information from the bank. You have the central banks, the information is exchanged, but to do anything, you had to go to the branch. You had to ask them for details, for cash, how many you have. If you wanted to withdraw something, you had to ask them. That was the state, let's say, 20 years ago, 25 years ago. ATMs, just to be precise, 67. 967 was the first ATM that was introduced to the market, so the cash machine. After that, the new way of paying with card, it was 1973. It was magnetic stripe, so something that you do not use anymore anywhere else. So the little black stripe that you'd have, you wonder what is it for, it's just from the past. Like many things in the banking industry, so this is something you have to be sure. Going forward, introduction, oh, it faded very well. Introduction of new card payment terminals means we are not using anymore the old ones. We go forward. You can have the web bank, or actually home bank at the beginning that was installed on your PC when you had network connection. You could use that, but that was also not so practical because you had to install it as a software. Next stage to that was home banking. So you went, oh, actually web banking, sorry. You logged into an application, you could do everything. So I think, yeah, that was the web banking, sorry. With introduction of web banking, you do not need to go to the bank as often as you had to go before. So the bank has faded away on the presentation here, but it's still there, but it's not visible from the customer perspective. If you want to take a loan, you have to go to a bank, depending from a bank, because you can have the banks that can give you loans from a mobile application. But just to have it statistically, since there is web bank, people are going less and less to the banks themselves. Next stage, introduction of mobile banking on your smartphones. Again, something that is making you go less and less to the bank and making you go less and less to the web bank. Me personally, I have to use web bank 3 times a year when I have to do my taxes because I need to log in through there for some special reasons. Other than that, daily working, sending money, receiving money, whatever interests, putting money on savings account, investments, and so on, everything goes from the smartphone. Next way of payments, you have introduction of PayPass. I left Belgium in 2015. I didn't have a card with PayPass. You can see that logo on the terminals, but cards with PayPass was not so much used. Here, where you are here in Poland, PayPass is present since 2012, something like that, and it is widely used. Next way of payments, Google Pay, Apple Pay, just as an example. Obviously, you can have like Alipay or whatever. There's plenty of pay possible, like Garmin Pay, for example. Huawei has something. Only thing that matters, it's a wallet on your smartphone, on your smartwatch, which is going to be shown in a moment, smartwatch, that allows you to pay with the card. Depending what you have, you can choose many cards, one card, whatever. This means that we use less and less normal terminals, and we use less and less the PayPass terminals actually with the card. If you are used to it, paying with a phone, it's much quicker. You don't need to look for your wallet. You have it almost all the time in your hand. Smartwatch, even quicker. Next progress was the introduction of PSD2. It was a European Union directive that forced banks to be compliant with some security regulations. And as well, at the same time, there was the idea of open banking, where you could have open APIs. That's the way how it's called inside the financial world, which allows you to, for example, view your accounts from multiple banks in one application, have some budgeting done automatically, just allowing you to access your information from one place. And obviously you cannot do everything because it has to be secured, but you can view your information. That's overall the idea how the things evolved. I have seen multiple things from that list. There are things that I haven't seen, obviously. But it's nice to know where everything comes from and how it evolves. Just to conclude on that subject, the less developed country is at the beginning, the quicker it gets into newer technologies. That you can probably see in multiple places, like Romania having the fastest internet from Europe like a few years ago, and so on. So that's why in countries that were poor at the beginning, there is a lot of money. The new tech is coming quicker than in old countries and stable countries, obviously. Mainframes, what are they? In summary, big box, heavy box with a lot of processing power. They are called big iron, also in the industry. It started in '59. First mainframe, it was IBM System 360 in 1965 with 4 megabytes of RAM, I think. Yes, 4 megabytes of RAM and a dual CPU. It's not something like that looks like it right now. Then you have the evolution, the System 390, which is looking more and more what we can see now. At that time, it was 1990. I didn't put everything in between, but 1990, 9 gigabytes of RAM, 6 CPUs. Not so much, but when you go back to the time, if you can remember what was your PC in 1990, if you were alive, talking to most of you here, it was nothing close to that. When I was like, what, 8? I had 133 megahertz with the turbo button that made it 166 and like 32 megabytes of RAM or 128, something like that. So the processing power was huge at the time, but we can jump to newer age. So 2015, IBM System Z13, 100, sorry, I have to give you the exact numbers, 141 cores, actually CPUs. Each of them has 8 core processors, and each of them has 5 gigahertz of frequency. 10 terabytes of RAM, unlimited storage, because storage is not placed inside that machine, everything is a network storage. In unlimited archiving power for backup of data, because you are storing data on tapes. Storing data on tapes is the cheapest way possible. If you think about something newer like Amazon Glacier or anything like that, they are doing the same. That's why to retrieve your data, you have to wait until 48 hours. Here, if you store your data on tape, there is a special room in every installation where there is a robotic arm, and you wait 10, 15, 20 seconds to retrieve your data that was stored there over 5 years ago. So pretty quick. Almost the newest one. Yeah, currently is the newest one, 2019. Not so many changes. They have added 70 cores. So we have 190 CPUs, 5.3 gigahertz, and 40 terabytes of RAM in each of them. Most of the installations do not have only one, because you have to have redundancy and backup. So we are running 4 at our company. 4 of them are running the whole banking in Denmark. Denmark is 10 million people, more or less something like Belgium. Market is strange because you have 120 banks that are shared between 6 companies as data centers to provide them. And the funniest fact is that almost most of them are running on the same machines, shared between multiple companies, but that's what we have. And we have 2 data centers separated 3 kilometers away for any physical also separation if needed. As a user, a side note, as a user, you will see something that is happening differently when contacting with mainframes from 2 different data centers, because you have something that is called a data share, and you are receiving anyway data only from one of them. Why? Because you cannot allow yourself in that kind of industry to reach the situation that somebody has changed data on one of them, and you are, by bad luck, contacting the other one that has not updated and synchronized. So there is data going only one way, and they are switched just to load balance. Installations like Google, when you do your searches, you can have different results simply because you are targeting different zones and getting information from multiple servers, not exactly the same one. If you have a video on YouTube that is growing very fast, you can see, if you refresh the page, that the number of views does not match and does not always increase, because you can simply be on the server that has been updated a little bit longer ago, and the number has not grown, so it dropped a bit compared to your previous refresh. What is on the mainframe from the construction point of view? What you can probably see is that 20% of it is dedicated to processing power. Everything around it is dedicated to data processing. So input, outputs, encrypting the data, converting the data to a correct code page, and only a small piece of the mainframe is dedicated to processing power. And in that small piece you have what I said, like, so 40 terabytes and a lot of processing power. Interesting facts about the numbers. On the Z15 you can start 2.4 million of Linux One virtual machines. This will give you the scale of what you can do on that thing. Yeah, going forward, where do we use them? So 71% of Fortune 500 companies, so the biggest companies in the world, Walmart, Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, biggest banks, biggest insurance companies, biggest transportation companies, Mercedes, BMW, so automotive industry, every place where you need a lot of input and output transactions. Simple as that. You cannot do anything better and more cost effective. 90% of your card payments are processed on mainframes. So this is Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. So there is no way that you are not using that on a daily basis. This is something that I really like as a fact. So you have 68% of production workload that is being run on mainframes, and all of that is accounting only for 6% of IT cost in the world. So this brings you the information, how cheap is that to run it. So in the world, we are processing 30 billion transactions, business transactions daily. A business transaction is not equal to an operation on the CPU. A business transaction usually is a lot of operations on the CPU. To give you a scale, when we are doing 100 million daily operations, it accounted for us for 2 billion SQL statements executed. So 30 billion business transactions is equal to a whole lot of operations on your machine. It can withstand the earthquake of magnitude 8 in Richter scale, so most probably the building it is running in is going to be destroyed. It's not only that it's physically going to survive, it's going to still run and process data. So you will lose your network connections, you will lose everything, but the damn thing is going still to be running. So 96 of the biggest banks and 9 of 10 of the biggest insurance companies. I don't want to make a fool of myself, so I will not ask questions about what bank do you use. I know this market, I have left alone a little bit the Belgian market. But here, if the room was like that, it was like 99% of people are using a bank that is running on the mainframe here in Poland. Something else. what is happening in a second in the world. It's data from last year. It's hard to collect data like that every time. So this is tweets. So 7.8 thousand tweets every second. 16,000 of Facebook posts or likes. 16,500 of Tinder swipes. 30,000 of Snap messages being sent. 64,000 Google searches. 71,000 of videos being watched on YouTube every second. And then you have what is being processed on an IBM mainframes worldwide when it comes only to online transactions, so users interacting with them. So it's 1.2 million, and this is only kicks. There is also IMS, which is more or less equal on the market. So yeah, that's to wrap up. Let me just take a sip of water before I continue. And let's jump to Cobol nowadays. What is that? Actually, what is Cobol? This is the logo of Cobol, chosen a while ago to show strength and how grateful it was. But there is an issue when you have a programming language that has started in 1959, officially in 1964, and people are using that, and it goes into a meme. So something from 97, how to spot a mainframe developer, a Cobol developer. He looks like a dinosaur. Why 97? Maybe you are not aware, in 2000 there was a huge issue on almost all IT systems. The issue was very simple. Someone, a long time ago, when things started, has started to put a date on a year only on two numbers, on two digits. You come to 2000, you have an issue because you have to start over and find, and directly all the dates are starting to count a little bit different way. Simple fact, this means that somebody was not thinking that his software is going to last for the next 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 60 years. Finally, we come to that conclusion. You had two solutions: rewrite your code or do a sketchy thing with a -20 everywhere. And that was the reason why some companies had issues 2 years ago into 2020. One of the biggest market players with cash registers, Novitus here in the market, had the issue. You could see plenty of information of things suddenly not working after 2020, because the guys 20 years ago has just tricked the system. And if you think that they fixed that in 2020, they did not, because you do simple thing, you change -20 to -50 and hope that in 30 years your system is going to be rewritten. That's not the case for us. We are operating at 4 digits for the year, so I'm just speaking about the general market. The general issue why this kind of memes, because that was the time where over 1 million developers in India has been taught Cobol just to deal with that issue. Yeah, going next. As I said, 59, the beginnings of Cobol. It was made on request of the US Department of Defense, invented by Admiral Grace Hooper, famous lady. She is also the one that you can thank for the word bug, because at that time they had a physical bug in the PC that was causing issues, and that's where the bugging is coming from, because they have been removing that bug from the PC. Cobol itself, it's an acronym of Common Business Oriented Language, which actually speaks a little bit on how do you write Cobol code. It's a language that is English, easy to understand by business people, easy to write. It has some downsides due to that. 59. 59 means that you also have been programming on punch cards. If you wonder what is punch card, the punch card is that. So you write your code on paper, you compile it. So you go to a punch machine and you do your code to something like that. Not an easy thing. And we have some consequences due to that. So we can write Cobol code right now, and this is not only applicable to Cobol, it's applicable to Fortran as well. If you want to do Fortran right now, it's the same scenarios. Maybe not the digits are different, but it's the same. So what we do, we write code from column 8 to 72, simply because on columns from 1 to 6 you had sequence number of a line. Column 7 was dedicated to a comment. Column 72 to 80, because that was how much you could put on the punch card. So it was going up to 80, no longer. It was for sequence number of page, document, what kind of program is that, and so on. Just in case if you work with a box of 2000 cards, you spill it, you have to somewhere put it in the same order. Just not to repunch it. And yeah, the life was a little bit more complicated. Right now, the only downsides we had is that we have to comply to the same rules. So we are still limited to those 64 characters per line for the code. But you will see it's concise as a code, so it's easy. We have over 300 reserved words. So things like move, date, day, to. There's plenty of them. You can just check other languages. You will still have a lot of words that you can use where you want. Cobol is famous for that simply because it was business-oriented language. So if you want to do an add in Cobol, you just type add in English, and you can do an addition. Simple as that. The code is structured. Okay, I will go first with that. The Cobol language is structured sequential programming language. You go with division, section, paragraph, sentences. Depending on the installation, you can either have a company that is using sections or paragraphs. I will show you in a second what does it change. Divisions are mandatory, and sections, you can use them or not. Cobol is a procedural language. There is a version from 2002 of Cobol, object-oriented programming language. As far as I know, just not to lie, nobody is using that. I have seen the course. I have seen how can you use it. You have classes, you have everything, but it's wrapped by the old-looking Cobol language, and the things just don't glue together from the visual point of view. So a code sample of Cobol. I hope that you can see it here because it's on the dark. Also something that is very speaking of Cobol, so on dark screen and so on. This is the typical hello world that you can do in Cobol. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 lines and a comment, just to show you that you can do comments. First thing that is mandatory, it's your identification division, because you have to put a program name at the beginning of the program. Other thing, because if you want to execute, you have to have a procedure division, and finally display, which simply prints a line to a user. So this is minimal things that you can do. You cannot do less. You can do a lot more. So little bit more things. I have added a section. As I showed you before, the code is composed of division and sections. So I have a procedure division, which is my main, so something that is always executing from the start. A very complicated language. Perform display all. This means that we are going to simply do what is in display all section. So that code, when executed, is going to display hello world, and on the second line, hello from section. Little bit more complicated with some paragraphs. So here I will go from the bottom. You have display all section. You have display greetings as a paragraph and display by as a paragraph. What happens if you execute a section? All the paragraphs included in that section are getting executed as well. So what you can see here on the procedure division, we have display greetings, display all, and display by. So, and also the display hello world at the beginning. So the code executed shows us hello world, hi from paragraph because of display greetings. Then you have hello from section, hi from paragraph, bye from paragraph because of display all. And finally you will get display by, so bye from paragraph. There is a sketchy thing that you can do in Cobol. This is not the only one language that you can do. It's a go-to. Maybe you heard, maybe you didn't hear about that. So go-to allows you to jump to a given point of the program. So go to line number 13, and you go from one place to line number 13. Nobody is doing that. This is just something that is possible in the language, but is not used by anyone. So this is actually something that people call Cobol a spaghetti language, but that's not the case in reality. Something else. The screen that you could see in banks, airplanes, and so on, and also some logistics systems like IS-400, which was heavily used in the trading industry and transportation. So this is a Cobol screen, actually a kick screen with online transactions. Obviously, it's not the case anymore because we are using kicks, so something that was interfaced before only as an application server to run Cobol applications on it, and then through REST APIs we have modern frontends. On top of it, if you use APIs, you can change your frontend as much as you want and do whatever you want. Something that I was hoping to show you, but I decided that it's going to be too much information on it. It's not to show you the terminal, how people usually think we work with Cobol, but to show you a proper IDE. So this is simply Eclipse with some built-in plugins by IBM to make your life almost the same as of a normal developer. But showing it here on the screen, it would be so smaller. So I will do the demo on the terminal just to be quicker and more concise. Visual Studio Code, as well. There are some plugins from IBM, from Zoe, from BMC software, so everything to make it possible to work with Cobol via Visual Studio Code. IntelliJ has started, so there is a project to have Mainframe plugins for IntelliJ. So basically, with the next slide, it will be easier. So this is a standard CI/CD pipeline that you can use on mainframe systems. The perspective that you have to have right now, it's very simple. The idea of most of the companies is to modernize mainframe installations so that the only thing that is different is the language. And think about it, if you have to write code in Java, C#, Python, .NET, whatever, you don't see much difference. You are a programmer, you can develop. Here, the big issue is the entry point, where you have to learn the terminal, the methodologies, the other tips and tricks, and so on. If we modernize it, the platform, if we make the only difference on the language level, then the entry barrier is very low, because the language itself is very easy as well. Obviously, you will not be an expert after 3 weeks, but I have proven that with, I don't know, 60, 70 people, you can teach people Cobol in 3 weeks so that they are ready to go to work on projects. And they can do actually everything: batch operations, online operations, front-end integrations, and so on and so on. Okay, so just some things. Misbeliefs or stereotypes about Cobol is spaghetti code, so that's the go-to issue that I was talking about before. Extensive syntax. This is if you want just to cause pain where there is no point. the idea of that language was to be extensive. That's simple as that. That one is funnier because it's isolation from IT community. If you have an issue, you go to Stack Overflow, you ask questions on Slack, on Discord, whatever, you find your channels. Challenge for you, go and type Cobol tag on Stack Overflow. You will get around 1,480 questions. I wouldn't bet more than 1,550. I didn't check last time. You do that with Java, there is 1.4 million of questions. So either Cobol developers are so smart so they don't ask questions, either they are so isolated that they are looking for sources elsewhere. And they do that. They look on forums, which probably nobody of you is using anymore. Like old ways of forums, something called Mainframe Guru, develop.net, Cobol something. So the information is hard to get because you have to look the other way that you usually would do. And dying language, the estimates are that there is 2 billion Cobol code that is written every year. So 2 billion of lines of new code. Quite a lot of a dying language, and especially all the industries that we are using it, and everybody using it on a daily basis. Something that I would like to call as like a real issue is the quote legacy. The definition of legacy software is easy. You call it legacy if you have a plan and you are doing something to replace it. You shouldn't call something legacy because it's old. You have to deal with it, you have to live with it, and if you don't plan to replace it, it's not legacy. So this is, for example, from Gartner, which is a leading source of information as a magazine to give people information about IT stuff and other domains as well, but managers like it. Here, in conclusion, it's the fact that we have put the IT into different speeds. We take mainframe guys, we put them on the side because sometimes we're going to replace it, so let's not invest in it. But at the same time, we don't do anything with that. We don't invest, we don't replace it, we don't modernize it. And you come to some situations like the famous New Jersey from 2019-20, beginnings of coronavirus in United States of America. There was, I don't remember, governor of New Jersey or somebody like that, that went on stage and said that the issue with their unemployment platform is the old Cobol system that was not updated for a long time because the website was not responding. The website was not responding because Java web server was not able to handle the load provided by the users and as the responses came from the mainframe. That was not nice from him to tell things like that, but the good thing, after that situation, there was plenty of openings for courses from IBM from Cobol, plenty of new things on Udemy, YouTube. IBM community has grown, the IBM training center has grown and has opened courses from IBM platforms and Cobol platforms. So, but things that turned into something very good for the community, I would say. So yeah, short thing. I will switch the presentation mode. I will go to demo. So this means that I will change to my terminal, and I will do a demo with you just to show you how you can code in. You see the terminal, you see the terminal. How quickly you can do a program in Cobol. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read data from a database and write to a file. Something that is not great, not complicated, but I just wonder how would you compare it to other languages. So first thing first, I will start my new branch. So my new branch has started from the repository. Yeah, and that's the always issue when you want to go fast. So new branch started. I will add a new member, 170. This tells me that I have a new program. I'm going to put some information about it, just because we need to have some build setup. So basically what I'm filling in right now is actually our build setup, so that you can properly build the program depending on some details that you have. I'm going to call a database. This is a program that is going to read data. It's going to be a main program. I always issue with remember the fields. So cool here. Let's go to repository ID, and here I have to change that one to something else. And remember, yeah, D, as I was expecting. D. Sorry, yes. Okay. And also something else. Yeah, batch groups. So I will create the program. Actually, putting in the information for the build setup is taking a little bit of time. Then you choose your member. Yeah, maybe in edit mode would be better, because then you can, if you go inside the terminal in the view mode, you change anything, you quit, you lose everything. You cannot just overwrite or anything like that. So you have to be sure what you are doing. And so let's start with a simple skeleton of my program. So basically I can already compile it and displayed some messages to you from starters. So this is already ready, but I'm going to clean it a little bit. I'm removing right now checkpoints. So checkpoints is used when restarting batch program, so that you don't need to process all the data every time something wrong happens to your execution. So yeah, next stage, I will add an SQL call. So I will get data from database. My database is called TCBL something. It will show everything that I want. I will name my cursor. So cursor in Cobol word is something like result set in other languages, because you are getting a record per record. But it's here, it's hidden for you. This is my interesting database. I'm going to pick this data. I'm going to get it from our test database, so no worries, there is not going to be any private data. So I have already generated the code to do the SQL call with everything. I will just add the fact that I want to read my database from my main. Here is the auto-generated code for you. I'm not going to keep it with hold. So with hold, you use it for update. Yeah, go a little bit down. I have to clean it because it has already prepared for me the sections where I could do updates of data. I don't want to do it. I want only to get data and write it to a file. So at that point, I have read the data from database. I'm going to read all the data from my database provided. Next stage, it would be nice to have a file that is interesting for me. So yeah, maybe here, my file, output file, Cobol name, output file. Anyway, it's very simple. I have good memory. It was 34, so 68 and 10, 78 and 583 of length. Cobol is actually record based, so unfortunately you have to provide the length, and all the data that you declare has a specific length. So your number, if it's 10 digit, you have to declare it as 10 digit and use that memory. So we have the file. The file is divided here, declared here. Something else that I need is actually a record to write it. So here we go quickly. Yeah. So the data I was taking, it was DB bank, DB interessant number, it was customer number, just go quicker, DB name, and I think it was DB GADA, if I remember well, I'm not sure. Lengths are pretty easy because they are digits. First one is 5 characters long. The heck is going wrong. Somehow, weirdly, my keyboard setup has changed. What the heck? What is going wrong? Okay, I cannot. I will deal with it like that. That's not nice. So this one was the heck. This one is 10 characters long. This one was 34, and this one was 34 as well. Just remember to put the dots after it. So this is my record. If I have a record, I will place my writing to a file somewhere. Somehow I'm all the times in caps, so something really weird happened between my keyboard and my PC and my terminal, but it's okay. Output, sorry, record F. B model, output, record F. This is my output, so I simply have to open my output file at the correct place, so before reading the data, and I will check my writing to the record to a correct place, so this means to processing of the data, so this is somewhere here, and only thing I have to do before is just to fill in my initial data. So I have CBL006. I will just prepare it for me. Okay. And yeah, come on, I'm not used to having this weird keyboard setup. And everything was called here DB something. So let's go like that, And let's go with autofill. So first field was bank number, second field was interessant number, third field was name. Unfortunate fact is that you cannot just pick all of them at once and tell him to fill it. So here we go. I remember it's cost cast, name, and gather, and we are done. So I'm going to compile it. Let's see how it goes. Things happens like that. So it's compiling. We'll see how long it takes, because we have been recently after the Git migration, so we moved our sources to Git, and we had some issues, but it was compiled correctly. So this means that I can go to the next step, and I can actually prepare myself for execution. So I'm going to go from a local repository. It has prepared everything for me. So let's go and let it run for a while. So maybe we can just, most probably it was already executed. DST, let's see how it executed. No, it's wrong filter. TCBL 170. It has executed. So let's go see my files. And believe it or not, this is that. So we have, I don't know how many records. Yeah, 1.1 thousand records removed from the database fairly quickly and structured and written to a file that is going to be automatically get rewritten, replaced. You can save it in other places. You can run it in multiple sources. So Cobol itself is fairly easy. I think that you cannot see the presentation right now because I have to close it and put it to the correct stage. So I think we have around 10 minutes left for the live because we had slept. So if you have any questions here in the room that I can answer, you are more than welcome to ask them. So if there are questions, then I can answer. There are no questions. Yeah, go on. Okay, the language is very old. However, there is something called RACF, which is the most secure, actually, security systems in IT. And this is IBM based, and this is all running on every Mainframe installation. So if you have issues with security, we have them on front-end applications, on Java middleware servers, but never on the mainframe itself. And I'm not a mainframe commercial salesman or anything, but that's the truth. That what happens. It's a very tough question. If you would like to launch a bank with Cobol, you can actually buy a license and buy a ready package. The company selling that is actually mBank, so one of the most digital banks in Poland, together with Accenture. They have been doing that setup 2 years ago for La Banque Postale in France. You could maybe see that as Ma French Bank in publicities. So this one was the idea to have a very stable setup, very tested setup, run as a new bank, new digital bank in France. So this might answer your question if it's interesting. It's going to be expensive, but you can do that. It took around 2 years to go from greenfield to the working scenario for friends and family setup. Other things to do, for example, there is cloud providers like Vodeno that go and launch you bank in 1 year, and the bank is actually worldwide. So Ion Bank, maybe somebody heard of it. This was built from zero to working solution sold in every country in 1 year. Just to have 2 comparisons from the market. Yeah, and that is actually the reason why many companies are changing, because you have to think about your future. And if you see on the market that the average age of Cobol developers, mainframe specialists, is very high, you have to ask yourself questions. You can either transition, take a decision that you're going to change, transition, spend a lot of money, a lot of time. A lot of money, it's like 2-3 billion euros to transition a big bank. This is a lot of money. There is no guarantee of success, and there is no guarantee it's going to be faster. The only guarantee you have, you are going to do something, and you are going to have software written in a newer language. Many cases have proven that if you go from Cobol to Java, for example, you start with a most modern version of Java, you have finished with legacy version of Java. So you start 7-8 years later, you have a version of Java that nobody wants to work with. So you have to be conscious, update it on the go, and not let it become the same issue as you had at the beginning.